At Delphi, in the 2nd century of our era, the traveler Pausanias stopped beside a stone of no great size. Every day, he reports, the priests poured olive oil over it. At every feast, they laid unworked wool upon it, and there was an opinion attached to this stone. Pausanias chooses his word carefully, an opinion, that it was the stone handed to Cronus in place of his child, and the stone Cronus later vomited up. Pause on what that means. The victor's most famous sanctuary maintained, as a curated exhibit, a relic of the coup that put the victor's family in power. Daily oil, ritual wool, care lavished on the evidence of a swallowed god. Here is the problem. Our only complete account of that coup is a single poem, Hesiod's Theogony, roughly 1,020 hexameter lines, composed around 700 BCE, and in its opening, the muses who supply the poet's material announce what they are. We know how to say many false things that seem like truths, and we know, when we wish, how to speak true things. That is not a confession of fraud. It is the frame the tradition hands us about itself. But it is a warning about certainty, and it is where this investigation begins. Because the title of this story is literally true. Before Zeus ruled Olympus, the sources give the world 2 previous administrations, Uranus, sky, then Cronus. And in the earliest complete account, the Titans, 6 brothers, 6 sisters, are not monsters. They are the previous government of the cosmos. The war between them and Zeus, the Titanomachy, is political, not moral. Zeus wins by alliance and by technology, not by virtue, which is exactly where modern memory goes wrong in a specific and traceable way. The serpent-legged brutes of film and games are the giants, a different war entirely, the gigantomachy, conflated with this one by later art. A 1981 movie called Clash of the Titans contains no actual titans. And notice the engine underneath everything, because it will drive this whole story. Every regime here falls the same way. The ruler is undone by fear of his own successor, and every coup is executed by the next generation with the previous generation's help. If the poem is our only complete witness, and its muses admit they can lie, then the first question is provenance. Who wrote this, when, and for whom? Provenance is where every investigation begins, so the poet. Hesiod of Askra, a village in Boeotia that his own verses call cruel in winter, hard in summer, never good. Around 700 BCE, working within an oral tradition, he describes singing at a funeral competition and carrying home a tripod as a prize. The Theogony is less a book that was written than a performance that was fixed. A genealogy of the gods, from chaos down to Zeus and the present order, delivered in the meter of epic. And genealogy in archaic Greece is a legal instrument. Aristocratic families traced their bloodlines to gods. Cults traced their privileges to foundations. Whoever could recite your ancestry back to a divinity had signed your charter. The Theogony does for the cosmos what family poets did for lords. Hold that frame. This is sacred history as the Greeks told it, not an eyewitness record, but the account a community organized its worship around. Nor was the official version ever alone. Homer preserves a rival cosmogony. In Iliad 14, Hera addresses Oceanus and Tethys as the origin of the gods. No Zeus first universe there. A lost epic actually titled the Titanomachy, attributed in antiquity to Eumelus or to Arctinus, told the war its own way. It survives only in fragments. And the tidy handbook version most people meet, Apollodorus, was compiled a full millennium after Hesiod. Plural sources, competing emphasis, no single canon. Then the ground speaks. The name of Zeus appears in Linear B tablets, Daiwi, Daiwo, at Knossos and at Pylos, between roughly 1400 and 1200 BCE. The new king is documented half a millennium before the poem of his coup. And on Mount Lycaon in Arcadia, excavations by David Gilman Romano and Mary Voyatzis between 2006 and 2010 opened the great ash altar of Zeus and found ritual deposits running from the final Neolithic, roughly 3000 BCE, through the Mycenaean era. Burnt animal bone from the base of the altar is radiocarbon dated to the 16th century BCE. Sacrifice at that altitude centuries before the alphabet reached Greece. The excavators themselves raise the possibility, and it remains only a possibility, that the altar first honored an earlier divinity, male or female, unnamed. The stratigraphy establishes age, it does not establish a name. And what did people actually believe? That this genealogy happened. God swore by the Styx, an oath with teeth, feared even by immortals, and its authority came directly from events in this story. The myth was not literature to them. It was the legal memory of the universe. With the sources mapped, the lore can be watched in operation, and it runs on rules, not chaos. The first rule: no regime trusts its own children. Uranus, sky, imprisons each of his children inside Gaia, Earth, as they are born. Gaia conceives a plan, produces an adamantine sickle, and her youngest son, Cronus, takes it and castrates his father. Hesiod states the event and moves straight to consequences. Sky and earth separate. The imprisoned children come out into the light, and from what fell from the wound come the Erinyes, the giants, the ash tree nymphs, and from the sea foam, Aphrodite. The world as we know it is downstream of the crime. The second regime runs on the same fear. Cronus is told he is destined to be overthrown by his own child, so he swallows each newborn whole. Rhea, pregnant with Zeus, hides the birth and substitutes a stone wrapped in swaddling bands. Cronus swallows the stone, and then Hesiod does something extraordinary. Theogony, lines 497 to 500. When the stone comes back up, Zeus sets it in the ground at Delphi to be a wonder for mortals. The myth plants its own evidence. 6 centuries later, Pausanias finds that stone, or a stone, being oiled daily and dressed in wool, belief anchored to an object you can walk to. Crete kept the birth. The great cave at Sycro, identified with the Dictaean cave, was excavated by David Hogarth in 1900. Thousands of votive offerings, bronze figurines, miniature votive shields, layers reaching back into the Minoan Bronze Age. Strabo, in the 1st century CE, records the ritual explanation. The curettes, armed dancers, clashing shields and spears around the infant to drown his cries. Myth and rite explaining each other. Arcadia objected. Pausanias records the local claim that Zeus was born not on Crete but on Mount Lycaon. The god holds rival birth certificates. Even the war has rules. Theogony, line 636, 10 full years of fighting and a stalemate. The deadlock breaks only when Gaia advises Zeus to free the 100-handers, whom Uranus had imprisoned, joining them to the thunderbolt already forged for Zeus when he freed the Cyclopes. That alliance of raw force and new technology, not moral superiority, matches the Titan's power. Styx defects first, bringing her children to Zeus's side, and she is paid with the god's oath. From then on, every oath of the immortals is sworn by her water. The first defector is compensated with the Constitution's most sacred instrument. Then the settlement. Honors are distributed among the victors. Hesiod's word is timai, and Homer adds that the 3 brothers drew lots for sky, sea, and underworld. Tartarus is measured in impossible geometry, a bronze anvil falling 9 days and nights to reach Earth, 9 more to reach the bottom. And one detail should not be skipped. Hecate, a power of the old order, keeps every honor she held from the beginning, in earth and sea and sky. The new regime legitimizes itself by preserving the old, and humans answered with festivals. At Athens, the Chronia, on the 12th of Hecatombaion, Demosthenes mentions it, Plutarch describes it, inverted the household for a day. Slaves dined with their masters. The Roman poet Accius, preserved at second hand, puts it flatly. everyone waits upon his own servants. And at Olympia, on the hill called the Kronion, beside Zeus's great sanctuary, the rites of Cronus continued, the defeated king honored beside the victor's games. But when the sources tell us how the story ended, they do not agree. And the disagreements are the story. Where did Cronus end up? Hesiod's theogony binds him beneath Tartarus with the other Titans. The same poet's works and days, lines 167 to 173, seats him ruling the Isles of the Blessed, where the heroes of the fourth race, the demigods of Thebes and Troy, live on without care. Pindar keeps him enthroned there, and Plutarch, in On the Face in the Moon, reports a stranger tradition still. Cronus, asleep in a cave on an island near Britain, guarded, dreaming, a suspended king, his power held in reserve. From that tradition comes the hope Virgil turns into politics in his fourth eclogue. A child is born, and the reign of Saturn returns. Every age that wanted a better world reached for the loser of the war. Then Crete again, with a contradiction the tradition carried rather than resolved. Visitors to the island could be shown a tomb of Zeus. Callimachus, in the 3rd century BCE, opens his hymn to Zeus with the retort, "Cretans are always liars. They built your tomb, Lord, but you are not dead." The line was already proverbial. It goes back to the Cretan sage Epimenides, and centuries later, Paul quotes it into a letter, Titus chapter 1. The immortal king with a grave that people cross the sea to see. In January 1962, roadwork near Thessaloniki cut through an ancient cemetery at Derveni. On the remains of a funeral pyre lay a carbonized papyrus roll, dated around 340 to 320 BCE, the oldest surviving book in Europe. Its bottom edges had burned away. What remained was unrolled into 26 columns. It is a commentary on an Orphic theogony, a poem the commentator insists does not mean what it literally says. And in that theogony, night, not chaos, holds the first oracle, and Zeus takes the kingship by going to her and hearing all the oracles he will then put into effect. The winner's legitimacy in this rival script is granted by the darkest power in the cosmos. And in later Orphic tradition, the succession does not stop at Zeus at all. He swallows the firstborn Phanes and recreates all things within himself. The Christian writer Athenagoras preserves this, and the heir is Dionysus. There finally the Titans become villains, murderers of the child Dionysus, destroyed by the thunderbolt, with humankind itself made from their remains, as the Neoplatonist Olympiodorus reports. The Titan as criminal, the previous administration moralized into monsters, is a later invention. Hesiod never says it. One more layer, the theory layer. In the Hittite archives at Hattusa, copied in the 13th century BCE, there's a poem modern scholars call the Kumarbi cycle. Anu is castrated by Kumarbi. From that act, the storm god Teshub is born. The storm god takes the kingship. The same mechanism, castration, fear of succession, the storm god enthroned, centuries before Hesiod, in another language, in another empire. Martin West and Walter Burkert argued these stories traveled from the Near East into Greece. Others hold it is an independent parallel, that dynasties of gods fall alike wherever humans watch kings fear their heirs. The question remains open, and it is one of the best open questions in the field. If the endings multiply and the script itself may be inherited, then the real question changes, not who won. What actually changed when the regime changed? Time to sort the layers. Documented. Hesiod's theogony, around 700 BCE, our only complete succession account. Homer's rival cosmogony, the Titanomachy fragments, Apollodorus a millennium later. Zeus's name in Linear B, 1400 to 1200 BCE, the Lycaean ash altar and its radiocarbon dates, the psychrovotives, the Chronia records, the Derveni papyrus, and the documented care of the Delphi stone, oil, wool, and a reported claim. believed by the people who told it, the genealogy as sacred history, oaths sworn by the Styx, the Golden Age under Cronus, the identity of the stone, the sleeping king's eventual return. Debated, Near Eastern transmission or independent parallel, whether the Titans encode older pre-Greek cults absorbed by the New Order. The conflation of Chronos with Chronos, time, the scythe, father time, the Grim Reaper's robe are later inventions, medieval and Renaissance, not the original Titan. And the very word Titan, its etymology, is unresolved. Plato took a guess at it in the Cratylus. It remains a guess. So, the verdict. Zeus's victory is not a triumph of good over evil. It is a settlement. The new order survives by absorbing the old, Styx's oath, Hecate's honors, the sun and moon keeping their offices under new management, and it ends the cycle of succession by the only method left, swallowing it. Warned that Metis would bear a son mightier than himself, Zeus swallows her first. Theogony, lines 888 to 900. The myth's own answer to its own engine, internalization, a claim of permanence, not a law of nature. And the afterlife is everywhere. Titanium, named by Martin Klaproth in 1795 after the old gods, the word Titanic. The Roman Saturnalia, a cousin festival under a distinct god, Saturn, carrying the same one-day inversion into December, and from there, arguably, into carnival customs that outlived both empires. Every politician who promises a golden age is, knowingly or not, rerunning the defeated king's campaign. And the monster titans of games and film are the newest, flattest retelling, a bridge into this story, never an authority on it. The ash altar on Lycaon still stands above Arcadia. The cave at Sycro is open to visitors. At Delphi, the guidebooks still mention the stone. The defeated king still gets his day of the year. The Constitution is still in force. Every regime that ever told this story claimed to be the last one. So, when a myth ends with, "and no one ever challenged the king again," ask what we ask of any document. Is it describing the cosmos or making an argument for whoever happens to be telling it?